All right, Matthew 26. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "As you know, the Passover is 2 days away, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people assembled in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and they schemed to arrest Jesus secretly and kill him. But not during the festival, they said, or there may be a riot among the people. While Jesus was in Bethany in the home of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, which she poured on his head as he was reclining at the table. When the disciples saw this, they were indignant. "Why this waste?" they asked. "This perfume could have been sold at a high price and the money given to the poor." Aware of this, Jesus said to them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Truly I tell you, wherever this gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you?" So they counted out for him 30 pieces of silver, and from then on Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over. I know it seems like we're getting to the end, but you underestimate my power to draw things out. We actually are going to spend several weeks here in this area. The last few weeks, we've been going over Jesus's final warnings. In the beginning of this verse, it says, after he finished saying these things, he's been giving a lot of very serious warnings to his disciples. And the beginning of chapter 26 tells us that as soon as he finishes, he tells the disciples what is to occur in just 2 days' time. He says that, after all those warnings, in 2 days' time, I'll be handed over. I'll be handed over during the Passover and crucified. Then we see immediately after the chief priests and the elders, those guys he called hypocrites just recently. They're still hanging on to that, still holding a grudge. So they gather in the house of the high priest, Caiaphas, to come up with a plan to secretly arrest Jesus and kill him. Because Caiaphas is the only one named and is obviously the most important person at this meeting, let's take a really quick look at this influential adversary of Jesus. So Caiaphas was the ruling high priest during the time of Jesus' ministry on earth. At this point in time, the high priest, you might think, he's a high priest. He was chosen by God. Not so. They're no longer of the line of Levi. If you remember, the priests are supposed to be Levites. They're supposed to come from the tribe of Levi, but they are no longer coming from the tribe of Levi. They were appointed by Rome. So these were aristocrats who paid for the position. Did I say aristocrats or aristocats? So they were singing jazz and... So happens you have kids, man. I haven't seen that movie, though, because it's secular. I only watch Christian movies. We have Passion of the Christ and the cartoon Passion of the Christ. So he was appointed by Rome. He was given his position in AD 18 by the Roman prefect Valerius Gratus, which kind of seems like a joke, right? It seems like you could make up that Roman name, Valerius Gratus, who actually preceded Pontius Pilate, the infamous Pontius Pilate, which actually means more than famous. No, I'm just kidding. It means bad. So Pontius Pilate, he came before Pontius Pilate. And they were placed in this position not because the Romans were like, who's the most loyal to God? Let's choose the person who is the most loyal to God. No, they chose people based on who would cooperate with them, right? So this person, knowing he's a high priest, we know that he cooperates with Rome, that he's not a Levite, right? And he's very good, this guy Caiaphas. He's very good at cooperating with Rome, or what I like to call compromising. He's very good at it because he holds this position for 18 years, which is a very long time at this point to hold on to that position. Meaning he's keeping in balance the Jewish people. He's trying to keep the people of God happy and the world happy. He's trying to keep the politicians happy and the governors happy and the people of God happy, which when you're trying to toe that line, you know that there's got to be some compromise. And so Caiaphas is a compromiser, if you will. So he was the son-in-law of another high priest by the name of Annas. If you were to look in John 18:12, we see that when Jesus is arrested, he's brought before Annas and then Caiaphas. It says he's brought to one and then the other. And if you were to read this passage, which we're not going to do, you would see that both of their names, both of these guys were listed as the high priest. It could be a little confusing. It'd be like, well, who's the high priest? They said he was the high priest, and they said Caiaphas was the high priest. It's obviously a mistake, but it's not a mistake. In Numbers 35, 25 through 28, it's implied that a high priest would hold their position until the time of their death. So when it was of the tribe of Levi, when there was a high priest, he would hold his position until he died. But that's not how it worked anymore, right? We just talked about that. It's not how it works anymore. So basically, it's handed from person to person as Rome wanted. So you can imagine that some of the religious zealots of Judaism would be like, we're holding on to the high priest until his death. He's a high priest until his death. We're going to give him that honor still. And then there was someone be like, well, Caiaphas was assigned. We'll call him the high priest. So you have these two people called the high priest. But Annas is going to hold on to a lot of his power. And because they're related, they're going to work together. And we see this. So when you see this occur, when they're both called the high priest, like in John 3:2, when John gives the time of John the Baptist, he says it's during the high priest of Annas and Caiaphas, which is correct. So Annas still holds on to a lot of his authority. We'll see his name come up. But Caiaphas is the Roman acting high priest. And we see them later when Peter and John are brought before them for preaching the gospel. So whenever these guys, but more importantly Caiaphas, appear in the scriptures, there's never like, and then Caiaphas was really good. It's like he's always seeking the destruction of Jesus. That's what he's seeking. And that's what they're doing in this secret meeting. How if there's a secret meeting, it's not good, right? If meetings have to be held in secret, it's like, why are we holding these meetings in secret? What's being planning? What are they planning? Is this like some kind of plot? Yes, it is a plot, right? If your employers are having secret meetings, some of y'all getting fired. That's how it works, right? So they're doing this meeting secretly and quietly because they don't want there to be a riot amongst the people, because the people tend to like Jesus, okay? So they're in this meeting, secretly plotting and planning, and seen. Okay, and now we go back to what is occurring with Jesus and his disciples. And he is in the town of Bethany, which is right outside of Jerusalem, if you remember. It's basically like a suburb of Jerusalem. So they would have said Jesus was still in Jerusalem, even though he's in Bethany. So they're in the town of Bethany, and they're at the house of Simon the leper. And when a woman comes to him with an expensive alabaster jar of perfume and pours it upon his head while he's reclining at the table. And the disciples are indignant. They're not very happy about it. They thought it was a complete waste of expensive perfume. And they came up, as we are prone to do, they came up with some alternate, better ideas of what could have been done instead, rather than doing this for Jesus. And Jesus tells them to leave her alone, that what she is doing for him is a beautiful thing. And we're going to go into that more next week. What I decided was I could do one really long sermon or some shorter sermons. And I figured you guys would probably want some shorter sermons than one really long. Especially Billy, who is probably thinking about Craig right now and how he's doing. No, I'm just kidding. So, how you doing, Craig? All right. So Jesus tells them to leave her alone for being so critical. And we would do well to remember this, because we like the word like, oh, the person has a critical spirit. But you know what being critical is? It's complaining. It's complaining with an attitude of superiority. Now, I'm not complaining. Complainers come up from underneath, and they're all like, why is this happening to us? Critical people are like, I'll tell you why this is happening, because that person doesn't know what they're doing. You know who does? Me. I know what I'm doing. I don't know why we're following this person. I don't know why that person's in charge. I've been here for all of 30 minutes, and I can see what's wrong here. And I should be made vice president. And they say, you know what? You should be vice president. And everyone's like, what? That guy's only been here for 30 minutes, right? But we as people, because people are critical, but Christians in the church are critical. We're critical in what other people, and not just like what's happening in leadership, but we're critical of each other. We're critical of what other people are doing in worship. We're critical of organizations that are trying to do good, that are trying to spread the word or help people. We can always think of better things that could be going on, things that we can think of, things that would be better, right? And what we do is say, I don't really want to support that because of these reasons. I don't really want to get involved in that because these reasons, right? And everyone would say, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm not giving to this. I'm not volunteering for that. And I'll tell you why. Because I just don't trust that it's a good plan. I don't think it's a good strategy, you know? I just don't think that's the best thing to do, right? And we always have these, and we don't really say, well, I think I've written up a 10-step plan of what we can do to help. No, we just say, I'm just not going to do that because I just don't know. I'm not going to give to that because I just don't trust what they're doing. And you know what happens? I don't do it now because as a pastor, people are like, oh, you're being judgmental. But when you're not a pastor, you can say, well, what are you doing? 100% of the time, nothing. Well, what are you doing that maybe we can join you in what you're doing for people? Please tell me. What should we do? What are we doing? Well, I mean, well, what are you giving to? Nothing. We use this as an excuse to not do anything, but it makes us look good and feel good because it's like, well, I would. I want to do something about the poor. I want to. My heart aches. I cannot sleep at night, but I'm not going to do it myself, and no one else is doing it right. So I pray about it. Pray. Then you're like, how often are you praying? Well, I don't really trust him. What's he doing? Is he going to do the right thing? I don't know. Maybe I should be in charge. They don't say that. But we're critical. We complain. And you know what? You know what happens when we do that in the church, and when we do that where we don't ever help people or do anything? We sit in place. We're not doing anything. And you know what the devil wants? He wants his church to not be doing anything. He wants his church to sit still. He doesn't want his church to help anybody, ever. He doesn't want his church to love on people. And so we play right into his hands when we are so critical, when we are such complainers, that we do nothing. But we have a haughty attitude about doing nothing. And these disciples, they're doing nothing. They're doing nothing. This lady is worshiping God. She's sitting at his feet. But not only are they doing nothing, what are they doing? They're criticizing her. And sometimes I think it could be because they're uncomfortable. But sometimes when someone else is doing something that we maybe secretly in our heart know maybe we should be doing, or we're like, maybe, I don't have that heart. We can be critical because we want ourselves to feel better and we want to look better. Because we are not doing what that person is doing. And we do that in worship. We do it when people are worshiping. We can be very uncomfortable with the way other people worship. There'd be people hopping, and these are things I've heard. I'm not just making up things. I've heard like people hopping up and down. They're like, I don't like that. That person's just too excited about God. You got to wonder. They're just too excited about God. You know, or someone's on their knees crying. They're like, oh, I wonder what they did this weekend. Right? It can't be they're just worshiping God, right? Or if someone's worshiping you like nearby and you're just like, I can't be near this person because that person makes me uncomfortable because the way they worship. It makes me uncomfortable. That person's too expressive. I went to this place and the people were getting all excited and I just, no. They were dancing. There were people running around the building. You know what they had in their hand? Crazy flags. It was crazy. But no, it goes the other way too, because I've done it where I've gone and I'm like, these people are too quiet. Why is everybody looking at a book to sing? Nobody knows the words to the song? How can you worship looking at a book? I don't understand it, right? And God said to me, he's like, why are you judging everyone else? As you're judging everyone else for their worship, you know who's not worshiping? You. You're not worshiping me. You're just saying, and every time I'm doing it, I'm like, Lord, I can't worship to this. I just can't worship to this. The meter of this song is just too, hymns. I'm like, these used to be bar songs. They just took the melodies and made Christian lyrics out of them. They're now when we have music videos of someone like reworking lyrics, we're like, how lame. But then we're like, you know what holiness is? Hymns. But we all have something that we like and don't like, and we criticize the other. We criticize the other, and we say that's why I can't worship. Man, I'm guilty of it. There's so many reasons I cannot worship. So many things that get in the way of my worship, right? Especially like as a musician. If you're a musician, like sometimes you get into this. Oh, the drummer hit the upbeat that time. Did anyone notice that? Just brought me out of the presence of God. Brought me out of the presence of the floor. It was floor to the floor. The beat was going, and all of a sudden, whoa, what happened? The Holy Spirit wasn't in that beat. That was incorrect. We do this. And I'm telling you things that have gone through my head, but everyone has something different. That's being critical. That's being critical. And God has always said to me when I do that, he's like, well, why aren't you worshiping? How do you know that worship's not sincere? You don't know that person's heart. You don't know what they're singing to me. You don't know them. You don't know my relationship with them. And then it's like, how dare you? And I have to stop and say, you're right. You're right, Lord. I'm being critical of everyone else. And in doing so, I am not worshiping. I'm accusing everyone else of being fake in what they're doing. And the only one here who's not doing what I'm supposed to be doing is me. Because I'm being too critical. And we may not say those things aloud, but we might talk about it at lunch or on the way home with someone we really trust. Who's like, oh my goodness, the third song, that downbeat. Oh, the downbeat. Oh, you heard that? Yes, that was crazy. I said the upbeat is wrong, but whatever. But this lady, and let's be honest. Let's just think about it, okay? I'll give you some, okay. If we were at a small party and a lady was sitting, and I'm not Jesus, but let's just think, was sitting on the floor and anointing my head and wiping my feet, would you be weirded out a little bit? You kind of would. You'd be like, yeah, it'd immediately be like, don't look over there. Don't look. Don't. I said, don't look. Did you tell that lady, see what she's doing? You see what she's doing to his feet? Yeah, does that make you uncomfortable? Yeah? It's making me uncomfortable. Okay, we have to stay here for 10 minutes, and then we're going to go, okay? Just talk to everybody, make it known that we're here, and then we're going to leave. Because that woman is making me very uncomfortable. We would. But you know what? Part of it is because we're not as demonstrative in our worship. That would be really out of left field. Because we are not as demonstrative in our worship. We get uncomfortable with far less demonstrations of love from the people of God. And so they're uncomfortable. There's some discomfort there as they think of things she should be doing with that perfume rather than what she's doing. And Jesus defends her. He defends her. And that's what he did. When I start being critical of other people in their worship, Jesus defends them to me. He does. He defends them and says, what are you doing? Hold on a second. What are you doing? Why are you even looking? Why are you even thinking about that? You should be worshiping. Sometimes God can teach us to worship through things like that. Like, we shouldn't be distracted. We should be able to worship anyway. We should be able to worship anyway. And he'll teach us. He'll train us. He will scold us and show us, hey, that's your problem. And that's a problem that I want to fix. Because I want you can't worship God in times of great stress. You can't worship God when a lot of things are going on around you in the world. If you can't worship him in his house around people who are also worshiping. And he will teach us how we should worship. But he is a good God and he's kind. And Jesus, he yelled at the hypocrites. He yelled the Pharisees and said, you guys are hypocrites. Yelled at them in front of everybody. But Jesus doesn't do that to his disciples. He doesn't yell at them, but he does defend her. He doesn't shout. He just tells them, you're in the wrong. and not her. What she is doing is a beautiful thing. And immediately following this event, Judas, one of the 12, goes to the high priest and asks, what are you willing to give me to deliver Jesus to you? And then it tells us Judas, man, sorry, I was sick all week, and I cannot say words today. I almost said something that was sacrilegious. Judas watched and waited for an opportunity to hand him over. And it seems like things like this happen all the time. It seems like things like this happen all the time. Not the like Jesus dying part, but the devil's plans succeeding. The devil's, what he's doing seems to be getting a lot of steam. We're like, I'm praying, I'm waiting to see moves of God, but you know what I see happening instead? All the things the devil's trying to do. All the things that bring me hopelessness and disappointment. And I'm praying through, I want God to see God's plan come to pass. But instead, it seems like the plans of the devil come to pass. And sometimes we wonder, Lord, why do the wicked prosper? Tell me you've never thought that as a Christian. Why do the wicked prosper? Has anyone ever thought that as a Christian? Why do the wicked prosper? You may not do in those terms, but you think, Lord, I'm serving you. Why is this coming to pass? Nothing seems to be happening. We're praying and we're waiting and we're working and nothing seems to be happening, at least no visible movement. And I'm sure in our most hopeful days, we're like, I know God is doing something somewhere unseen and maybe one day it's going to pay off. But too often we see situations like this, right? The high priests are like, man, we want to kill Jesus. I wish there was a way. And all of a sudden, one of his closest friends comes and says, hey, I'll help. He doesn't even know, but he comes and offers them what they're looking for, right? The plans of the devil are just coming to pass so quickly. Isn't it so nice? Everything's working out. And if we're honest, we're like, Lord, why does that happen? Why does that happen? It can be frustrating. And I know a lot of Christians who get really frustrated. Even in the Bible, in Psalms, it says, forgive me, Lord, for I thought, why do the wicked prosper? I thought it, but now I know that that's not the way. For a minute, I almost gave up hope because I saw the wicked prosper. This guy, Caiaphas, has had it out for Jesus since the very beginning, and here he's just getting the desire of his heart. One of Jesus' closest friends who's ready to sell him for 30 pieces of silver. Doesn't it say God knows the desires of our hearts? Do you ever why is everyone else getting the desire of their heart? But I'm not getting the desire of my heart. Because this is the desire of Caiaphas' heart, to get rid of Jesus. And he's probably thinking, when Judas walks in the room, he's thinking, thank God for answering my prayers. You know he is. He's thinking that. He's so deluded that he's thinking God has brought this blessing. He is. That is what he's thinking. But this Caiaphas has wanted to get rid of Jesus for a very long time. In John 11, after the resurrection of Lazarus, we see in John 11, 45 through 53, that therefore many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did believed in him, but some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. What are we accomplishing? They asked. Here is this man performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation. Then one of them, named Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, spoke up. You know nothing at all. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than that the whole nation perish. He did not say this on his own, but as high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation, and not only for that nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and make them one. So from that day on, they plotted to take his life. Jesus has just raised a man from the dead, yet they refuse to believe or even stop to reconsider that he might be who he says he is. They don't even stop to reconsider. They get together and say, this guy is taking up all our followers. Rome is going to be upset. We're going to lose the temple. We can lose the nation. And so Caiaphas declared that it would be better for Jesus to die for the whole nation. And listen to what he's saying. He's like, man, if this one guy dies, it's going to bring our nation together. This one guy dies, even the scattered nation of Israel, everywhere is going to come together. He foresees like we're all going to be brought together by the death of this man. We just need to kill this guy, and everyone's hatred for him is going to bring us all together, because hatred brings people together. And that's what he's thinking. He thinks we kill this false Messiah, it's going to bring everyone together. And John, looking back at this, sees some truth in what he's saying. Yeah, he will die, and he will bring the people of God together. He will bring the scattered together into his kingdom, but not like you think he's going to do it. Not in the way that's expected. So Caiaphas sets out to kill Jesus. We need to kill Jesus and bring everyone together. It's the most beautiful thing. Okay? But in Caiaphas' careful and secret planning, if you remember, part of the plan where they were going to wait till after the festival. We're going to wait till after the festival. We were going to do this secretly. We're going to do it quietly. We're going to do it when no one's around. But Jesus had just said, in 2 days' time, in the middle of it, when everyone's here, I'll be delivered to them. I'll be delivered to the high priest. So the plan of Jesus is very different than the plan of Caiaphas. What Jesus says is going to happen is very different from what Caiaphas says is going to happen. One is God's plan and one is man's plan. So what changed? What made the high priest change his mind? This whole time, they've been like, we cannot oppose this guy in public. He's got too many followers. They were so afraid of every time we went through it, it's like they were afraid of what the people would think. They were afraid of what the people would do. Every movement they made was based on the fear of the people. And then all of a sudden, he's going to be like, yeah, let's do it in the middle of the festival when everyone's here. Let's do it publicly. No, something changed. Something changed. What changed? Judas came and offers them an opening that they didn't know they were going to get. An opportunity they may not have again. One chance. And all these plans come together to bring to pass what Jesus said was going to happen. All these plans of the enemy come together to bring to pass the plan that the Lord had made before the beginning of time. The enemy, the devil himself, is foolishly playing into the plans of God. Man cannot stop the plans of the Lord. Man cannot stop the plans of the Lord. I've heard in the mouths of Christians, oh, God was going to do this. But man did something and stopped it. And not the people of God, like someone else opposing the people of God. Man cannot stop the plans of the Lord. The reason we get so worried about what is going on is because we see power in these men. We see power in government. We see power in the people around us, and we've forgotten the power of God, that even when man is working against God, even when the devil is working against God, he's working for him. He's bringing about the plans of God. Leaders cannot prevent what God is trying to do. And these men, these are powerful men. These are influential men. These are religious leaders. And they've set their minds on killing Jesus, and they're playing right into God's hands. The devil is behind all of this, and he's playing right into God's hands. He's like, let's kill this guy, put it in their hearts. We need to kill this guy. And the devil came and tried to tempt Jesus and get him off mission, and he's been against him the whole time. And victory is coming, he thinks, but it's playing into the hands of the Lord Almighty. But what's happening? All these men are working to oppose Jesus. What are the people of God doing? They're working their hardest. They're having secret meetings. They're getting together. They're sending people to watch Jesus. They're saying to test him, to trap him. They are working hard to end the ministry of Jesus. But what are the people of God doing? She's just sitting at his feet and worshiping him. She's got no plans. She's not trying to bring in anything trying to bring anything to pass. She's just sitting and worshiping him, giving him honor and glory. She's not doing whatever she can to defeat these earthly powers. She is unaware of the spiritual battle going on. She's just simply sitting at his feet and worshiping him while God moves in the background. And there are other people of God there, and they're not perfect. They're being critical. The people of God weren't even perfect then. They're being critical, but God, look, Jesus knows their hearts. And when he corrects them, they listen. He knows that they'll listen. They'll take the correction because really they do want to please him. But who do you want to be in this scenario? Do you want to be the worshiper at the feet of Jesus, unaware of the stress and the worry and the critiques and the judgment, just sitting at his feet and worshiping while he works? That's who I want to be. I want to be just sitting there at his feet and worshiping him and not even aware of what's going on, not even aware of what's going on in the spiritual as God is moving. I don't even need to worry. I just need to be at his feet and worshiping. What peace? What peace? And even as she worships, she's just showing him how much she loves him. Even as she worships, she's being used by God. The only people who are not anointed for death are criminals. People who are crucified. He will not be anointed for death, but he is anointed for death by this woman who was just showing him how much she loves him. She's just focusing on worshiping Jesus, and in this small action, she is fulfilling prophecy and taking part in the work of the Lord by just worshiping him. And we get sidetracked into our own plans and into trying to fight the enemy and to fight this and fight that. How do we do this? But listen, don't minimize, don't forget the power of the living God. And don't minimize the power of worship and the peace that is found at his feet. There is power in just sitting at his feet. That's where the power is, sitting at his feet, worshiping him, just being in his presence. There's power in just being in his presence. And we are so stressed and worried, we can't find peace at his feet. It's found at his feet. The power is found at his feet, just sitting at his feet. And it's one thing we have trouble doing. We think oh, God needs us to stress and worry. God gave me the spiritual gift of meddling. I've just seen that person there new. They just walked in. You know what? And oh my goodness, I need to meddle. I need to meddle. My family's here for the first time. They really like this song. I'm going to call ahead of time, make sure they sing the song because God can only sing. God can only move through that song. That hasn't happened. But seriously, and we worry and we fret and we try to plan a 10-step plan to the person I love salvation. There's power at the feet of Jesus. There's power at the feet of Jesus. There's peace at the feet of Jesus. There is joy in his presence. And guess what? When she's attacked by his followers, what happens? The Lord Almighty defends her. Defends her. Too often we defend ourselves. We think we need to defend ourselves. Be still. Be still. And let the Lord fight your battles. Be still and let the Lord fight your battles. Be at his feet. Be in his presence. And enjoy the peace that he has for you there. And a lot of Christians are too uncomfortable to go there. We worry. What will people think? And that's exactly what the devil wants. For us not to be at the feet of Jesus. Not to be in his presence. Because what God wants for us is at his feet. And it takes some humility. But that's where power is found. That's where peace is found. That's where joy is found. We can live our lives. We can live our lives, our Christian lives, and succeed and have peace being in his presence, seeking his presence, with our goal to be at his feet. And I want to be a person who's at the feet of Jesus. I want to be a church who's at the feet of Jesus, who's just at the feet of Jesus. Lord, we know that you have the power. Lord, I know you can move. I don't need any glory. I don't need to do anything. I'm just going to seek you. I'm just going to seek your face. I just want to live my life at your feet and trust that my sons and my daughters that my brothers and my sisters and my mothers and my fathers will come to know you. I'm going to trust that you're working. And if you want to take part in what God has, you just need to be at his feet. We just need to be at his feet. Lord, I just thank you. I thank you that you defend us, Lord. I thank you that you love all of us. And you know how different we all are and how different we like to worship and our different personalities, Lord. And you love us. And I just pray that we could love each other the same, Lord. That you would teach us. That you would teach us how to not complain, how to not be critical, Lord. That we would not fear other people being critical, Lord, but that we could just seek your face. That we would not be afraid to be the people who are just at your feet worshiping you. I thank you that you are worthy of that worship. You are worthy of all of our attentions. You are worthy of everything that we have, Lord. And we just declare right now, we trust in your power. We know that you are working. Even though it seems like the wicked might be prospering, even though it seems like those we're praying for, nothing is coming to pass, we just know in our hearts, Lord, we just declare that you are God and your plans are coming to pass, and man cannot stop the plans of the Lord. And so we rest. We rest underneath your wing. Help us to find your peace and your joy resting at your feet, Lord. And I thank you that you offer us peace and rest. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.